Hi, everybody. My name's Leon, and I wanted to first give a shout out to everybody on the solar subreddit. You guys rock. And this video is a quick summary of my family's journey with solar and power walls and electric and where we're currently at because there were a lot of questions on Reddit, and I thought this would summarize it more clearly, also be a good little video log for us so we know where we're at, where we came from, and hopefully maybe use the collective brain of the internet to give us some comments, help, thoughtful feedback, yell at us, whatever makes you feel good. So we bought this house in 2019. It's our dream home. It is in New Jersey. It is beautiful. There are fields all around us, farmland that's locked up in like green acres leasing. So we have lots of open space. It's great. We have a huge backyard. It's wonderful. We have animals. We have dogs. We have fishes. Uh, we've got wonderful foster kids. It's just life is great, except for solar. So when we bought our house, the house came with solar panels on the roof. That solar array is from Sonova. It's leased. It is 50 panels with 50 microinverters. For those who are solar nerds who want the specs, those panels are Canadian Solar and they are 255Ps, C56P-255P. Those are on the roof. Now, the people who sold us the house told us that the solar was great and they really only had an electric bill in the heat of the summer when the AC was on. This house has two HVAC systems, one for the first floor in the basement, one for the second floor. In addition, at the time, there were two water heaters, very big water heaters installed in series. So anyone who has that knows that it's great for volume, but also when they're electric, it's a lot. We knew right away we were going to have a higher electric bill than they did. I should also point out that we have net metering here with our utility. So anything that you generate goes back to the grid if you're not using it, and that comes off of your monthly bill. And in theory, you could wipe it out. We knew we were going to use more electric than they did. We have animals and tanks, as you can see behind me, that use electric. They did not. We knew that I work in technology. I'm a gamer. My husband is an avid gamer. So we knew we would have bigger home offices than they did with bigger TVs and desktop rigs. So we knew we were going to use more power. Not to mention I smartified the whole house with switches, etc., etc. But boy, did we not understand how much more we would generate. So after a while, the other thing that came up within the first year or two, we had lived in the city. My husband had always lived in the city, and power outages when you live out in farmland are a much bigger deal. In that the power is not out for 10 minutes; it's out for several hours or days sometimes. That did not sit well with us on one particular day where the power was out from a storm the night before. It was beautiful and sunny. We had this huge solar array and no power. So we were wondering, why is that? We're not solar aficionados. That's when we learned about the fact that if you don't have storage in place in order to protect the people working on the lines, if power is out, it clips your solar. So we right away did the research and we ended up getting three power walls installed. Even when we got them installed, the installer said, wow, we usually do one or two, three's a lot. We explained, listen, we want to make sure that we can continue to have power in an extended outage because we do have animals and things that are reliant upon that electric. Also for work, for me, I have cellular backup for our data connection, but I work in IT. I do litigation support, things of that nature. I need to make sure that if I'm working from home, that I can work from home. So we had three power walls installed, and that was great. After a while, we said we need to see if is there a way can we expand our solar footprint so we can offset the rest of our electric usage. So we started doing research, and we decided we have this big backyard. We don't care if we ruin some of the aesthetics because it's huge. It's fine. Could we do a ground mount solar array? We talked to a few companies. We went with one. I'm not going to bring up the name of this company because we're trying to work with them despite some of the struggles in this process. We really are trying to work with them to solve these issues and not turn into like an angry flame war, even though sometimes I want to. So we're going to leave their name out of it for now. And they spec'd out a 14.52 kilowatt hour system. The proposal said with this plus the state incentives called T-Rex, it will ultimately end up eliminating your power bill when you look at it from the year. They said there were some months where obviously you'll have a little bit of a power bill, but on the other months it'll be offset so greatly, plus with the T-Rex, that you won't have a power bill anymore. And they knew about our other solar array, they knew about our power walls, and they factored all of that in and sized it based on that. So we said, this sounds great, this looks great, let's do it. And thus the project started. While that was going on, we also said, can we find other areas in the house to reduce our electric usage? So we got more aggressive with the eco settings on our smart thermostats, to more targeted turn down usage on the HVACs when we didn't need it. We made sure all of our appliances were high efficiency, which for the most part they were when we bought the house. We did replace a couple. The big thing is we took out those water heaters. We took out both of the electric water heaters and we replaced them with a gas-powered instant water heater. So it doesn't use, it barely uses any electric, but for heating the water it uses gas. We thought, great, this is going to be a huge drop in the usage. We got 3 kids in the house at the time, plus us, and so this was going to dramatically, we thought, reduce usage. We did the other basic stuff, replaced all of the bulbs with LEDs and high efficiency bulbs, etc. Then the install happened, and the install was a big cluster. I'll just be honest. It was supposed to be a 3-day install. It ended up stretching well over 2 months. I really blame a lot of that, honestly, on COVID and the struggles that a lot of people in various industries were experiencing. Staffing for the solar company was just horrible. There were days when one person would show up and they couldn't really do anything because they couldn't lift the panels by themselves. They couldn't get them up by themselves. Then there was a point where everything had been delivered, but then they realized, oh no, wait, 2 of the rails actually weren't delivered and the suppliers are all backlogged, so we don't know when those will get there. That was another 5-day delay, and just that kept happening. The one thing that became very evident was that while this company was very well versed in doing roof installs and doing commercial ground mount installs, the nitty-gritty like quality of life stuff with a residential ground mount was not necessarily in their wheelhouse. They just little tiny things. That when we mentioned that we wanted a gravel bed under the solar array, like, well, why would you want that? It's like, well, we can't mow under the solar array and you're putting it in our backyard. It's kind of a problem. We need to put something down so that we can keep grass and other weeds from growing up. They did a decent job with that. We had some back and forths on how much gravel would be needed, whatever. Another quality of life thing, for instance, they trenched from the solar array to the back of our house. And they filled it in with the dirt from getting ready for the ground mount, but they didn't tamp it down, they didn't let it settle, so of course within a week or 2, we ended up with a almost foot-deep ditch, like trench, running from the array to the house. And when we initially called them, they said, oh, well, that's normal, it's settling. And I said, no, you didn't tamp it, and you didn't wait and come back and refill it. By the way, we let you leave all of the extra dirt in our yard so you wouldn't have to pay to get a truck to come out and move it because it was going to be hard for you guys with the manpower. We got to make this right. Back and forth we went, and they did ultimately say, find a hardscaper near you, have them fill it in, send us the invoice. And we did. It was taken care of. That was an example of a really great interaction with this installer, even if we had to push a bit for it. So coming to today, backing up a little bit, in the winter, we had a power blip go out, and we were like, oh, cool, we get to finally see not just the power wall and the roof, which we'd always had, but we can see the ground mount feed into it. And we opened up the Tesla app, and we were running off the power wall, but the charging didn't seem, what we were pulling on the power wall app from the house seemed to be like, well, we should be feeding the power walls with the solar at this point because of how much we're generating and how much we're using, yada, yada, yada. My brother, who works in solar, happened to come down to visit around that time, and he said, do you mind if I look at your system? And so we did. And when he did that, we determined that the solar system from the ground mount had been tapped into I'm not an electrician or a solar person, so I've learned a lot of terminology, and I apologize if I'm using the wrong terminology, but they had tapped into the line between our electrical box inside the house and the main connection in the Tesla Powerwall. And I'll show a diagram in a second. But before we get into that, the specs for the ground mount that was installed. So on the roof, we had the 50 Canadian solar panels with the in-phase inverters. On the ground, we had 44 Trina 330 solar panels installed with 44 IQ7 microinverters from Enphase. One of the things that Reddit helped me through recently was going through all the paperwork very in depth, where we discovered that in the proposal that had all the your savings, what the generation should be, etc., they had spec'd it out with those panels and IQ7 plus microinverters. Now, when I confronted them about that today, and we went over the contract more in depth, in the contract, it does have IQ7s, not the IQ7 pluses. And they explained and sent a bunch of documents to us afterwards saying, look, it was a clerical error. The deck we use for ground mounts usually is for larger installations with 400 watt panels, and it defaults to IQ7 plus. For yours, since they're 330 panels, we would use IQ7 no matter what, and that's what was in the contract. They then stated that IQ7 pluses would clip more than IQ7s, and again, I'm not a solar expert, so that seemed weird to me, just with how electricity works. But again, I didn't push back because I don't know, and I essentially told them, look, I'm a data guy. I don't know this industry. I don't know the technicalities behind all of this. It's not my area of expertise, but I do know data. So I'm just going to keep track of the data. You're telling me we shouldn't see this kind of clipping in the warmer months. So obviously, if we do see that kind of clipping, or if this clipping, which you say should be sporadic, is the norm, then there's a problem, correct? And they said, yeah, let us know, but you shouldn't see this problem in the future. Some people on Reddit disagree. Who's to say? I'll keep track of the data. We'll find out. So the ground, I picked a day recently to give you guys numbers so you have an idea of generation. February 11th, sunny, clear skies all day. Our roof generated 53 kilowatt hours, and our ground mount generated 77.3 kilowatt hours. Now, one of the big reasons that we want to make sure everything goes through our Powerwall gateway and our Tesla app correctly is because we're trying to track down, because I'm convinced that there's something weird going on with the electric in the house, because with those numbers, those kind of numbers on a fully sunny day, we are still getting a monthly electric bill, usually over $200. So in addition to having a massive array on the roof, a massive array on the ground, a beautiful sunny day where in total we're well into 120 kilowatt hours generated, we're still getting a huge electric bill. So I feel like something's off. Something is weird, something is squirrely, and I don't know where to look. And one of the things we were hoping to be able to use to sleuth that out is to have a centralized app where we can go in, we can see what the house is using, what it's pulling, what's being generated, and what's going to the grid. And with that data, narrow down time frames, narrow down hours, see if we can see if there's a particular culprit. And unfortunately, we aren't able to do that because of how they connected the ground mount into our electric. And again, this is one of those things where in some of the line drawings during the install process, they said, oh, well, we showed you here how it was going to be done. And I was like, well, you never showed me anything. You just included this and several other line drawings. I didn't go over with how that was going to be connected. And look, I'm not an electrician. I wouldn't expect you to. But also, I didn't know what to ask to look for. So my brother does this for a living, and he was really generous and actually did a drawing for me, which I provided to them, showing how our system is currently set up. So I'm going to bring that up real quick. So this is our existing system. You'll see here, this right here is our backup gateway, and there's an internal bus bar, but you'll see our roof system connects to that bus bar. Our ground mount comes in, and it connects to a tap between our 200 amp box here and the connector here. So the Tesla app does not see any of that generation. I'm also assuming that because of that, what the Tesla app shows as consumption is also off, because it's being fed, our house is being fed directly by the ground mount. So I don't think, given that the Tesla, I think the thing that monitors it is up here above this connection, I don't believe it's taking that into account. So we showed this to them. We gave them another drawing of how it should normally be done with the ground mount going to a breaker on the bus bar, so that way it is calculated in the generation and tracked in the Tesla app, and more importantly, in the event of a power outage, can be used for backup. Because as we understand it, the way it's set up right now, in the event of a backup, the ground mount is not actually feeding anything. So that's kind of where we're at. There's a whole Reddit thread about what's going on with the clipping and an update on where we are with that, essentially saying nowhere, we're going to keep track of it, and they're going to keep us posted. But we're trying to track down the ghost in the wire. We're trying to figure out, is there something else that's going on with our electric that's causing this really high usage? Because, I mean, we use a lot of electric, yes, but something's up. In addition to that, they are going to be providing a proposal to address that wiring question. We've been promised that for well over a month now and haven't received it. I brought it up again yesterday and today. We still have not received anything. And they also now are saying, oh, but there's going to be a charge for that. I might argue that there shouldn't be. Given all of the pain during installation, given the fact that we've had repeated just weird issues like this IQ7 Plus clerical error, that at this point we believed that the system would work with our power walls. In reality, it works in spite of our power walls. So I'm hoping that when they do finally get a proposal to us, that they are mindful of that, rather than trying to consider this an entire new electrical project that they want us to pay full price for. But we'll see. So that's where we're at. I would love input, ideas, thoughts, constructive feedback, like I said. But that's where we're at. That's been our solar journey so far. We're trying. We're trying. But at least we got a really good water heater out of it.